Aleeza sat at the cold metal bench of the empty bus stop, her arms wrapped tightly around herself as the icy wind stung her skin. She didn't know if it was the weather making her shiver, or her heart breaking inside her chest. Just 2 hours ago, she still had a husband, a home, a future she thought she could fix, but everything changed in a single sentence. Aleeza, I can't keep living like this. I want a family, and you can't give me that? Her husband's words still echoed in her ears, no softness, no hesitation. As if she were a burden he was throwing away. Aleeza had infertility issues. She knew that, but she also knew she had tried more than anyone. Treatments, prayers, tears, but instead of holding her closer, her husband pushed her away. He signed the divorce papers with a relieved sigh. She left the house with nothing but her purse, and a heart that felt hollow. Now she sat at the bus stop, snowflakes settling on her hair, watching the empty road. No buses were coming. The city slept, the world didn't care, but fate was awake. From the corner of her eye, she noticed small shadows moving. 5 tiny figures, and behind them, a man. He looked exhausted, like someone carrying the weight of the entire world on his shoulders. His coat was old, his hair dusted with snow, but his eyes were gentle. He wasn't angry at the cold. He was simply surviving it. At first, Aleeza didn't look up. She was too tired, too broken to care. But one of the children, a little girl with pink mittens, pointed at Aleeza and whispered, "Papa! Whoa! Auntie Ro, Rahi Hai? Papa, is that Auntie crying?" The man turned sharply, worry in his eyes. Aleeza quickly wiped her face, pretending nothing was wrong, but tears betrayed her. The man stepped forward a little, keeping his children close behind him. "Baji, aap theek hain?" he asked softly. Aleeza nodded, but the lie felt heavy. She wasn't okay. She was a woman whose whole life had collapsed in one night. The man didn't press further. He simply stood there, quiet, respectful, his 5 children huddled around him like small stars orbiting a tired sun. Silence filled the snowy night. Until one of the boys tugged his father's sleeve. "Papa, antikeo, humara blanket dedin?" The father looked surprised, then ashamed. He had only one small blanket shared among all 5 kids on long nights. But even then, the boy wanted to share it with a stranger. The man knelt down, kissed his son's head, and whispered, "Matted card hain. Leakin apni zarurit bul kar nahi?" He turned to Aleeza again, clearing his throat. "Main, Mohsin hun. Or, yeah, mir panchbashe hain, agar ap chan. Tuhum sothwait karlit hain, rat akle mat guzari." Aleeza looked at him for the first time properly. A single father, 5 children, a man who looked like he hadn't slept peacefully in years, yet still found space in his heart to worry about a stranger. Something warm flickered inside her frozen chest, just a spark. The spark of being seen, the spark of being worth concern. But she said nothing. Not yet, because she didn't know that this quiet, tired man, and these 5 little children, would one day give her the family she was told she would never have. The snowfall grew heavier, covering the pavement in a soft white blanket. Aleeza sat silently, staring at the ground while Mohsin stood a few feet away, making sure his children stayed close to him. He didn't want to disturb her, but he also didn't want to leave her alone in that freezing night. One of the younger boys, barely 4 years old, tugged at Mohsin's coat. "Papa, antikeo gar nahijana?" Mohsin sighed softly, brushing snow off the little boy's cap. "Beta, harinsan ki life, alig hodihai, shayad antikagar, abigar?" The boy didn't understand the depth of his father's words, but Aleeza did. Her chest tightened painfully. She didn't mean to listen, but she did. And for the first time since her husband abandoned her, she didn't feel angry. She felt understood. Mohsin looked at her again, concern in his eyes. "Agar ap keo bura knowledge. Tomain puchin? Ap yahan akili kirkar rahi hain?" Aleeza paused before answering. She wasn't used to talking about her pain. Her ex-husband never gave her space for that. Every conversation with him ended in blame, but Mohsin's tone felt safe. "Mera shohar mudj chor kar chala gaya," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Wo bache chaithe or main." Her throat closed before she could finish. Mohsin's eyes softened. Aj ki rat mushkil hogi, he said calmly. Lekin kal better hoga. Ala nihar kisi ka hisa raka hai. A simple sentence, but it wrapped around Aleeza like a warm shawl. One of the children, an adorable girl with 2 small ponytails, walked toward Aleeza without fear and held out a candy. Auntie, Aproyamat Karin. Aleeza blinked in surprise, the tiny hand. The innocent gesture. Her heart cracked open and tears spilled again, but this time, not from pain, from kindness. She took the candy with trembling fingers. Thank you, Beta. The girl smiled proudly and ran back to her siblings. Mohsin watched the interaction quietly, something unspoken flickering across his face. Respect. And maybe a recognition of pain he knew too well. Aleeza finally asked the question forming in her head. Up? Panchbachan Kesaf, Akle. Mohsin let out a long breath, a sad smile tugging at his lips. Unkima abiz is dunya main nahi. Aleeza's eyes widened. Suddenly his tired posture made sense. The dark circles, the old coat, the quiet determination in his voice. A single father of 5, carrying grief and responsibility every single day. Ap boat himat wale hain. Aleeza whispered. Mohsin shook his head gently. Nahi, bas koshish kardahun, bashanki kushika liapni thakin chupa lidahun. His honesty touched her deeply. Before she could say more, the eldest child tugged Mohsin's arm. Papa, bus aagai? Mohsin checked the schedule. His shoulders slumped. Aj last bus chali gay beta. The little ones groaned in disappointment. Aleeza bit her lip. She had nowhere to go, neither did they. Strangers. Yet all abandoned in their own ways. Mohsin turned to her. Agar ap chayan. Sath chow kar kissy warm jagatak pohan shiate hain. Yahan rakduzarna safe nahi. Aleeza hesitated for a moment. Trust wasn't easy, not after everything. But when she looked at the children, all huddling around their father, their tiny breaths fogging the cold air, she felt something soften. This man wasn't dangerous. He was simply tired and kind. Aleeza stood up slowly and nodded. Hi. Main apka soth chalti hoon. Mohsin gave a small relieved smile and gestured for his children to follow. As they began walking into the snowy night, 6 little footsteps and one broken woman beside them, Aleeza didn't know that this path would change her life forever. She didn't know that with every step she took toward warmth, she was also walking toward a family waiting for her destiny. The wind howled as they walked down the snowy sidewalk, Mohsin leading the way, his 5 children following like little ducklings, and Aleeza walking quietly beside them. Every few seconds, one of the children would look back at her, as if making sure she was still there. Aleeza wasn't used to anyone checking on her. Her ex-husband never even noticed if she ate, cried, or slept. So the tiny glances from these little strangers warmed her more than the streetlights above. They reached a small tea stall. It was the only place open at that late hour, a wooden cabin glowing with yellow light, with steam rising from boiling kettles. Mohsin pushed the door open and guided the children inside. Warmth washed over them instantly. The older boy shook snow off his coat. The youngest jumped excitedly. Aleeza stepped in last, wiping melted snow from her eyelashes. Mohsin approached the counter. His voice was polite, but Aleeza noticed how carefully he counted every rupee before ordering. Bhai Saab, 6 garam doodh or 1 chai. Aleeza blinked. 6 hot milks for the children. 1 chai for himself, but nothing for her. Not because he didn't want to give her anything, but because he simply didn't have enough. She could see it in the way he hid 2 coins in his pocket, probably for the bus fare tomorrow. Her chest tightened. Before he could pay, Aleeza stepped forward. Uncle, do chai or 6 cookies bidadeen? Mohsin turned sharply. Nahi, Aleeza, apkyan? She smiled softly. Apben rat kela nahi chorha. Yeah, boat hai, cookies main to dunji. He stared at her for a moment, almost shocked. Kindness, the kind he wasn't used to, settled between them like warm sunlight. The children clapped happily at the sight of cookies, and Aleeza couldn't help laughing as they gathered around the small table. Aleeza sat with the children. They warmed their hands near the heater and sipped hot milk with tiny smiles. One of the boys leaned toward Aleeza and whispered, Auntie, ap boat, achi ho. She froze, her throat tightened. No one had called her Aki in a long time. Her ex-husband always used her infertility as a weapon. Tum bakar ho. Tum se family nahi ban shakti. Tum much rakti ho. But here, in this tiny tea cabin, a child with a runny nose and mismatched socks told her she was good. Aleeza smiled through tears. She wiped the little boy's face with a tissue. Tum sab boet piari ho. The children beamed. Mohsin watched silently from across the table. He wasn't smiling, not fully. His eyes were soft, thoughtful, almost grateful. Aleeza looked different in the warm light, her red sweater slightly wet from the snow, her hair loose, eyes tired but kind. She didn't look like a woman who had been rejected. She looked like someone made for love, made for family. Mohsin finally spoke when the children were busy finishing their cookies. Mohsin leaned slightly toward Aleeza. Aleeza! She looked up. Apni bataya nahi, aj rat, kahan jng? Her heart dropped. She had hoped, maybe foolishly, that he wouldn't ask, because she didn't have an answer. Main, her voice broke. Mir pazabe koigar nahi? Mohsin inhaled deeply, his jaw tightening, not in anger, but in pain. For her, ap mir satha shakti hain. Aleeza froze. Mohsin quickly continued, his voice steady. Mir garch hoda hai. Bus du rooms, likan kamse kamrat sukun se guzer jayaji. Apkeo akle nahi rena shahi. Aleeza stared at him, at this stranger who had no reason to help her, yet had already done more for her tonight than her own husband ever did. She swallowed hard. Main boj nahi bana shadi. Mohsin shook his head immediately. Kisi ki niyat se dia gaya sahara kabi boj nahi hota. Her eyes stung. No one had ever said something like that to her. Not once, before she could respond, the little girl with ponytails tugged Aleeza's sleeve. Auntie! Please humari gara jao. Papa roti banayanj. Aleeza laughed through her tears. It was the sweetest invitation she had ever received. And at that moment, surrounded by 5 innocent children and 1 quietly generous man, Aleeza made her first real choice since her heart broke. Thikai Mohsin. Main op kasath challenge. Mohsin let out a slow breath, almost relieved. The children cheered. Aleeza felt something she hadn't felt in months. Belonging. She didn't know it yet. But she had just stepped into the beginning of a family she never thought she could have. The storm outside softened as they walked toward Mohsin's neighborhood. Snowflakes drifted gently now, landing on Aleeza's eyelashes like tiny feathers. The children held her hands on both sides as if she had always been part of them. Mohsin walked slightly ahead, glancing back every few minutes to make sure she was all right. No man had ever looked back for her before. Her ex-husband used to walk ahead like she didn't exist, but tonight, someone noticed her steps. They reached a small, humble building, chipped paint, dim stairwell lights, a narrow corridor that smelled faintly of old wood and detergent. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't big. But the moment Mohsin opened the door, Aleeza felt something she didn't expect. Warmth, life, family. The children ran inside with giggles, throwing their jackets onto a tiny sofa. The walls were decorated with crayon drawings, crooked hearts, stick figures, messy rainbows. A small shelf held children's storybooks. Everything was imperfect. Everything was beautiful. Aleeza stepped in slowly. This place felt alive. Mohsin cleared his throat softly. Gar choda hai. Likan dil se saf hai? Aleeza smiled. Voat acha hai, Mohsin. The truth was, it was the safest she had felt in years. Mohsin spread a thin mattress on the floor for the children. One by one, he tucked them in, pulling blankets up to their chins, kissing their foreheads, stroking their hair with gentle fingers. Aleeza's heart clenched. A man caring for 5 children with so much tenderness, not complaining, not cursing fate, just quietly loving them. She had never seen fatherhood like this. A moment between them, when the children finally settled, Mohsin brought her a cup of warm water. Not tea, not coffee. Just warm water, simple, pure, like him. Aleeza, rot boet sakthi, agar ap thakihun, toya mera rumhai. Main yahan baith karjag joanga. Aleeza shook her head instantly. Nahi, up yahan nahi baithenj. Bochin kepaz so jan, main yahan floor par so jongi. Mohsin looked almost offended. Main kabi bi maman ko zaman par nahi salada? Aleeza whispered softly. Main maman nahi hun, surf musafir hun. Mohsin paused. His eyes held something respect, maybe admiration. Musafir biala ki rimat hate hain. Her breath caught. No man had ever spoken to her with this kind of softness. They sat at the small dining table, 2 chipped cups, a dim yellow bulb above them, the quiet sound of children sleeping in the background. Aleeza wrapped her shawl tighter. Mohsin didn't stare, he didn't ask uncomfortable questions. He simply waited until she was ready, and for the first time in her life, Aleeza wanted to speak. Mera shohar. Muj bakar samaj datha, she admitted, her voice trembling. Infertility. Mary Galti Bangay. Mohsin frowned. Galti? He leaned forward slightly. Aleeza, bacha na hopana kisi ka kasur nahi. Or wo admi jo ya bat samaj nasik. Usnab ka duk nahi, apni kami dikadi. Aleeza blinked, stunned. No hesitation, no judgment, just truth. Her ex-husband never comforted her like this. He never touched the pain gently, he pushed it deeper. But Mohsin wasn't afraid of her brokenness. He wasn't scared of her tears, he simply accepted her. Aleeza asked softly, Or up, Mohsin, apki zindagi kab idni mushkil hue? He inhaled deeply. Jabnari bui guzergei. Silence fell. He continued, voice trembling as memories resurfaced. Cancer, akritin sal, surf hospital or dwoan main guzre. His jaw tightened. Main akila nahi bana shadatha. Leakin bachan kelai mazbut bana zarori tha. Aleeza felt tears in her eyes, not for herself this time, but for him. This man didn't just lose a wife, he lost a dream, a partner, a home. Yet he built a new world for his children with what little strength he had left. He wasn't surviving, he was fighting. The quiet realization as they sat across each other in the small room, something shifted, not loudly, not dramatically. Just a silent understanding. 2 broken people, 2 lonely hearts. 2 souls who had been deserted. Finally found someone who saw them. Mohsin looked at her, really looked at her. Aleeza, apni mera gargaram kardia, bachan ni hansi wapas hassel kar li, he paused. Shukriya. Her breath hitched. No one had thanked her for simply existing, and she didn't know it yet. But this night, this conversation, this warmth, was the beginning of something bigger than fate, a family she never thought she could have, a love she never thought she deserved. When Aleeza opened her eyes the next morning, she expected cold, loneliness, and silence the kind she had lived with for years. But instead, she heard giggles. Tiny footsteps padding across the floor, soft chatter, a child whispering, Auntie Youthgay. Aleeza blinked, sitting up slowly. 5 small faces peeked at her behind the curtain. The youngest boy, with messy hair sticking in all directions, ran to her and hugged her without hesitation. Good morning, Auntie. Aleeza froze for a moment, then gently wrapped her arms around him. She had been called many things in her life, infertile, useless, burden. But never had anyone called her auntie with such innocent affection. It melted her heart. Mohsin entered with a tray warm parathas, a small teapot, even a bowl of halwa. Aleeza stared. Apni ya sab, mir lai? Mohsin cleared his throat, embarrassed. Ap maman hain or maman is it hate hain? Her eyes softened. Nobody had cooked for her. Not even on her birthdays. She sat with the children and took a bite. It tasted like warmth and kindness. The little girl with ponytails proudly announced, Papa ni hawa rat ko banayatha, hum sab ni matted ki. The children nodded wildly, each taking credit for stirring, mixing, or dropping sugar by mistake. Aleeza laughed, a real, bright laugh she hadn't heard from her own lips in a long time. Mohsin looked at her quietly, absorbing that sound. It felt like sunrise, a small moment. That meant everything as Aleeza helped the children wash their hands after breakfast. One of the boys slipped and nearly fell. Without thinking, Aleeza rushed forward, caught him, checked his elbow, and asked, Hot tu nahilagi? Mohsin watched from the doorway. Not just watching, observing the way she cared. The way the children gravitated toward her, the way she filled the room without trying. She wasn't trying to be a mother, she simply was one. Something stirred in Mohsin's chest. Soft, unfamiliar, but undeniable. Aleeza tried to leave when the children began playing with their toys. She stood near the door, gathering her shawl. Mohsin! Main chalti hun, main boat tankia. Mohsin straightened, eyebrows pulling together. Aleeza, ap ni kisi keo tang nahi kia, agar ap chali gayan? Bache udas ho jayenj. She looked down. Mir rense ke fark padega? Mohsin stepped closer, not too close, just enough. His voice was low, steady. Fark pata hai. Aleeza's breath caught. He continued. Abke ane kebad. Garmain muskurahat wapazai hai. Bache rat. Ko bina der soy, or main. Boad arshbad sukun se betha. She swallowed hard. No man had ever needed her like this. No man had ever wanted her presence. Her ex-husband wanted only one thing from her children. Mohsin wanted nothing except her peace. The children decided for them before she could respond. The children rushed over. Auntie, please mat jow. Aj hum snowman benayanj. Up be chalian, Aleeza laughed helplessly. She looked at Mohsin for help, but he only gave a small, hopeful smile. She nodded slowly. Thik hai, ajruk jongi. The children erupted in cheers. Mohsin quietly exhaled, a sound so soft she almost missed it. The snowman incident outside, the children gathered snow excitedly. Aleeza joined them, shaping small snowballs with her freezing fingers. The youngest boy suddenly pointed at Mohsin. Papa! Apa our auntie dono center main care ho? Before either could react, the children pushed them together. Aleeza stumbled forward. Mohsin instinctively reached out and steadied her by the arms. Their eyes met. Her breath hitched. His heartbeat stuttered. For a second, the world fell quiet. Just them, close, safe, warm. She pulled back gently, cheeks flushed. Mohsin stepped away, clearing his throat like a man trying to hide emotions he never expected to feel again. But the children didn't miss anything. The oldest boy whispered loudly, Papa keo auntie pasanda gai. Mohsin turned red. Aleeza covered her face, laughing nervously. A slow shift in destiny. As the children decorated the snowman with buttons and sticks, Aleeza felt something growing quietly inside her. Not guilt, not fear, not the emptiness her ex-husband left behind. Something new, something soft. Something she thought she wasn't allowed to feel anymore. Hope. And Mohsin, watching her from the corner of his eye, felt the same. Neither of them said anything. But both of them knew this wasn't just a morning. It was the beginning of a new life, a new family, a new love. A love that didn't need children to validate it, but would bring children closer than ever. The sun dipped low in the sky as evening approached, casting a soft orange glow across the small neighborhood. Snowflakes still lingered on rooftops, but inside Mohsin's home, warmth filled every corner. Aleeza sat on the floor, helping the children color inside their little notebooks. The youngest boy lay in her lap, half asleep. The girl with ponytails sat wrapped around her arm like a vine. Two boys argued over crayons while the eldest quietly drew a family of seven. Aleeza didn't notice, but Mohsin did. He stood quietly near the door, watching the scene with a gentle, almost trembling smile. His children weren't clinging to a guest. They were clinging to someone they had accepted. Someone they needed, someone they loved. And Mohsin realized he needed her too. Dinner that felt like destiny as evening settled in, Aleeza insisted on helping in the kitchen. She kneaded dough while Mohsin prepared vegetables. Their shoulders brushed occasionally, sending unfamiliar warmth through both of them. Aleeza smiled softly. Aj din boet acha guzra. Mohsin nodded, chopping quietly. Apke ane se. Gar gar lan laga. Her hands froze on the dough. He didn't say it casually, he meant it. She lowered her gaze, feeling emotions she hadn't felt in years. The truth she feared later, when the children were asleep, Aleeza folded her shawl carefully. Mohsin, kalmain apna saman lin jongji. His expression fell. Kya matlab? Her throat tightened. Main, zada din nahi ruk shakti. Uplogon ka hak hai apni zindagi jeen ka or main. She looked away, voice breaking. Main wo sabnahi de shakti joek or at dedi hai? Mohsin understood instantly. She meant children. Pain flickered across his eyes, not because she said it, but because the world had made her believe it. He stepped closer, gently lifting her chin. Aleeza, bache ala kia manat hain. Or miragar surf bachan se nahi shal raha, miragar koek sathi ki zarurat hai. He took a shaky breath. Or wo sathi, apo. Aleeza shook her head, tears forming. Mohsin, main ma nahi ban shakti. He smiled, soft, sad, full of truth. Apni ek din main mir bachan ko wo pyar dia. Jo kai log salen main beat nahi de sakt. Agarya mahona nahi, tofir kyahai. Her tears finally fell. Slow, unstoppable. The children woke up hearing voices. The little girl with ponytails walked out rubbing her eyes. Auntie? Apya rahi ho? Aleeza froze. More sleepy heads appeared behind her. The eldest boy stepped forward quietly. Ni. Ek wish kithi. Aleeza knelt down. Casey wish beta? He held up the drawing he made earlier, a family of 7 holding hands. Chate hain. Kap, Umari, Mama Banjao. Aleeza's breath shattered. The youngest boy wrapped his tiny arms around her neck. Please, Auntie, Humain Mama Shehi. She broke, completely, crying into their little shoulders, shaking with years of pain, rejection, and longing, and finally, acceptance. These children weren't asking for someone to give them birth. They were asking for someone to love them. And love overflowed in her chest. Mohsin made his choice. He came forward, his voice steady but full of emotion. Aleeza, agar ap keo manzur ho. Tohum soft milkarek nayagar banasaktain. He paused. Main ap se koi bacha, manyen nahiea. Main ap se zindagi manyen ea hun. Aleeza looked at him through tears. She had been rejected for not being a mother. And today, she was being chosen because of the mother she already was inside. Slowly, trembling, she nodded. Mohsin. Mujman Zorhai. The new beginning, the children cheered, hugging both of them. Mohsin's eyes shone with relief and gratitude. That night, Aleeza didn't sleep as a guest in someone's home. She slept as part of a family. A woman who had been thrown away for being barren had become the heartbeat of a home full of life. A man who had lost everything, found love again without searching for it, and 5 children who cried for a mother every night. Finally had someone whispering them to sleep. Mama, Yahan Hai. ***, the end.